Hello and welcome to another episode of the special series showcasing young, amazing CEOs in Nigeria. I am Elsie Godwin. On this episode, our first conversation is with a man who is passionate about education. Not just education, but the right kind of education. Gossy Ukanwoke is an education entrepreneur and the founder of Nigeria's first private online university, Beni American University, BAU. He is the founder of BAU Executive Education and the chairman, Alistair Maine Group. In June 2016, he was named one of the makers and shakers of EdTech by WISE and Qatar Foundation. He made 2018 Forbes list of Africa's 30 most promising young entrepreneurs, and he is the former president of EduTech. Thank you for your time, Gossy. All right, you have a passion in education and you've worked with various African governments to advise them on that sector. What would you say is the drive behind this passion?
Personally, I believe education has the power to change anybody's life. And it's the good kind of education, the proper education. And the work I've done over the last, say, 9 to 10 years is in connecting young people here with a kind of education that can allow them to become more, do more. And that's sort of what's driven my work in education so far. The work with the African governments literally is more centered around connecting the education system to their national economic plans. So many governments set out economic plans. Oh, hey, we want to be a manufacturing economy in the next 20 years. We want to be an agriculture economy in the next 10 years. But many of them do not spend the time to say, who are the people who are going to work in that economy in 20 years? Are we preparing them today for the future that we want to create for the country? So most of that work is just around connecting those economic plans to the education today.
Okay, so you mentioned the kind of education.
Yeah.
So what kind of education is this education? Because if I'm getting you right, it means that the education we have now is probably not the kind of education that will take us to the next level.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by the kind of education?
We're getting more into the world where young people and the work that people do today isn't the type where you do exactly as you're told. You're supposed to be able to think through things, critical thinking, put in your own inputs, and the education we have around mostly around the continent is more colonial. Right? It prepared our grandfathers and fathers for the world, that they had in the 1960s, in the 1940s, in the 1970s, where we still had colonial Africa. Go to work, do your 9 to 5, don't ask questions, don't give any inputs, just do exactly as you're told and just go home and say nothing and go back home and have a small, little, nice family and everybody's happy. But the world is changing. Where critical thinking is important. There's innovation now. You need to question authority. You need to question systems, processes. That's how things get improved. So we need to actually change the pedagogy of learning to where people are, to where we are encouraging thinking, to where we are encouraging communication, collaboration, not competition. So that's why if you look at the way, maybe when you're in secondary school, they were like, oh, these are the first 3 students, these are the last 3 students, the competition. You're not doing lots of group projects where you're encouraged to work together, but that's what we need to do now. It's not about competition, because when you finish from school and you're going to work, you're not going to be competing with your colleagues. The only way the company grows, the only way the industry where you're working grows is when you actually collaborate and work together. And that's what the education system should prepare you for, not competition and just being docile, do what you need to do, go home, say nothing, ask no questions. Okay,
there's something you said that brings me back to capacity. You're talking about being able to think things through.
Yeah.
So do you think we have that capacity at all in this part of the world?
Everybody does.
Okay.
But you need to be able to create the structures that allow that. I'll give a very good example. If you're in school and the questions you're getting is, list the 5 types of microphones, as an example. And then you list it and then that's good. You pass, right? But if you're being said, hey, you're in a scenario like this, there is noise, you need to interview someone, what kind of microphone out of all the microphones we've taught you should you use in this scenario?
Okay.
You're going to think it through. You're going to, you're going to actually now apply the knowledge. So it's more application of knowledge and the learning that you've received rather than just to list things and define things. And yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay, so while working with the government to give them advice on these educational issues, what would you say is that particular thing you've noticed that is a problem across board, across Africa?
We're afraid of change. We're more comfortable with what we're used to. And we always have this thing of, oh, the good old days. Oh, the time the education system was really good. Forgetting that education was really good for the 1970s. The education that they had then was really good for the 1940s. But is it good for the world of today? Is it good for 2050? Is it good for 2100? That's just bringing that disconnect. How do you actually get the people who are in positions of authority and influence and the policymakers to realize that things have to change if we're actually going to be able to compete tomorrow? Because more and more, the jobs that you have of today, you're no longer competing with people in Lagos or in Nigeria. If a job opening opens here today, you're competing with everybody around the world. Anybody from anywhere can apply. Same goes for jobs out of country. Anybody from anywhere can apply. So, it's more global now. So you need to be able to compete. If we keep getting, outrun, outsmarted by other people, then we can't get jobs in the future.
Okay, bringing it home to Nigeria, because I mean, it's a charity begins at home. What would you say is our problem here in the educational sector? Because I kind of feel like it can be peculiar. So what is the problem in our own case?
It's peculiar, but not so peculiar. I think you see it around in everything. If you leave your house and you come to work, you're going to see it. We do not do maintenance. We do not upgrade things. Once it's there, we just leave it like that. The roads get bad, we just patch it up. No one is thinking, hey, 14 million people are coming, Lagos is growing maybe from 10 million to 14 million to 20 million. We need to do more superhighways. We need to have rail. We need to do 10-lane roads. We need to convert the 2-lane roads into 10-lane roads. But the 2 lanes are still the 2 lanes that you saw 20 years ago. So the same thing happens in education. We're not thinking about the population is growing incredibly. We're not upgrading the curriculum. We're not changing things. We just leave it as it is. Just patch it, fix just this part, fix that part, and it's across everywhere.
So what's the solution to this problem?
Innovation, really. Innovation is the solution. I'll give a really good example. When we were starting up building our own university, it was simply to solve a problem of access. Access because 2 million students will take JAMB. All the institutions of higher learning, that's universities, polytechnics, you name them, will only take in about 25% of those who actually apply. So what that means is you have 500,000, 1 million students who passed, who are interested in going to universities, but they cannot because there's simply no spaces for them. Innovation would be doing an online school, doing an online university, using technology, e-learning, to take in as many people as possible because the cost of developing infrastructure is really high. Putting up buildings and hostels and classrooms, it's actually pretty expensive. And you cannot do it as quickly at the same rate rather as the population is growing and you're running out of land space. So innovation will allow us to get in as many people as possible. Innovation will allow us to connect to classrooms in the US, classrooms in South Africa, classrooms in the UK, and you're getting global learning. Teachers from around the world can actually teach you even though you're here. Innovation can allow us to do that. So that's the solution. Innovation actually has to lead regulation. Innovation has to be in front of regulation. We do it the other way around, here, where regulation goes before innovation. You haven't even done anything. I've been told, no, you can't do it. But let's do it first. Let's see how it works. And then we can now, structure it properly and make sure that nothing is lost. But I can say in the last 2 years, 3 years, there's been a lot of improvements in the way the environment is, the policy environment. We have a couple of e-learning programs in Nigeria that are 100% online. So that's some progress, but we're not making that progress as fast as we should. Okay,
so you started the first online education in Nigeria. I know it has evolved, right? How was the challenge at the time? Because I know we still have the issue of data and access to internet. So if we were saying let's embrace the idea of having to learn online, how accessible is it really to people, especially in the grassroots?
It's really accessible. So like I mentioned, in addition to our own university that we're doing lots of e-learning programs, we've also started working with other existing public universities to take their own on-campus programs online. So we have Ahmadu Bello University, we have Obafemi Awolowo University, and we've taken programs online from those two schools. It's more affordable because they're public institutions, more affordable than a private institution. And we have students from around the country. We realize that there's a way you can blend online learning and offline learning in a sense. Not necessarily classroom, but you can blend online and offline. The fact that people can watch videos on YouTube, the fact that people can actually watch videos on Facebook is enough for you to actually deliver learning to anybody anywhere. But if we're having a really heavy content, we found a way to actually deliver that content to them without necessarily using the internet. So they get thumb drives, thumb drives that will have all their videos, can connect it to their phones, they can connect it to their laptops, and they can watch all their lectures. But they will need internet access to do group discussions, class conversations, etc. So
internet access has not been a barrier in any way?
No, it was a barrier, but we had to find a way to work around it.
Okay.
Yeah. The other one, and I think one of the biggest issues around just digital education here, is the comfort that parents have. So we mostly see that the graduate programs are doing super well. Super well. Because the people who are taking the classes and taking the programs are the ones paying for it. However, for the undergrad programs, where the bigger problem is, more and more you're seeing that you need to convince your parents that they say, oh, my son is in OAU or he's in ABU, but every day the guy is in the house and he's on a tablet or on a laptop. They still can't connect that. Still doesn't make sense to them. They're like, oh, you're in university, but you're always in the house.
So we have an orientation problem.
Yeah, so we still have to walk through that. And the more comfort that you build, then the wider the acceptance will be. We've also had to take our examinations offline. So there are centers around the country, final exams every semester. You go to a physical location, get accredited to certify you're the same person who has been taking your classes, who's coming to take the examination, same person who registered for the program is coming to take the examination, and you take it in a physical location, and it's supervised in person. So you have invigilators and supervisors in the hall, and you can take the examination. So you have to sort of blend, go less digital 100% and more blended, so you can actually build the comfort that that you need people to have to sign up for programs online.
Okay, like you rightly said, funding for this form of education is not exactly the same thing where you say you must have a proper structure and all that. But regardless, some level of funding is necessary. And right now, you've even evolved to the offline sector. How easy has it been to get funding for this line of business, or something I would like to call impact business?
Interestingly, the good thing is that education places you in a very unique place. As much as you're a business, you also have, like I mentioned, social impact. So you're able to access funding from everybody. Because at the end of the day, from the companies who are going to hire your graduates, to impact investors, to regular venture capitalist investors, you have access to funding from everybody, because you're placed education is really good because you're placed in a really interesting place. So you're able to have access to all sorts of funding, investments and grants and scholarship funds, etc.
All right, quickly, what advice would you give the young ones out there trying to find their foot?
I always say this: start now, start today, and do everything possible that you can yourself, and then you can start to bring other people to believe in what you want to do. And the more people you have believing in what you want to do and supporting that, the faster you can go, the faster you can get to the destination that you're planning to get to.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Welcome back. Next up is a conversation with Jaja, the CEO and founder of iCreate Africa Limited. Mr. Jaja is a social entrepreneur, branding expert, filmmaker, motivational speaker, and youth leader with unshakable belief in the abilities and chances of Africa. In 2012, he established an NGO called We Dance Africa, under which he united other dance groups and forged a common alliance towards using the art of dance to address social issues. He has won several awards, including the Abuja Advancement Awards for the most effective concept in the FCT. Recently, he was listed on the Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 2019. Thank you for your time, Bright.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I see I create skills everywhere, and then I create Africa.
Yeah.
Tell us about this, I would like to call it a beautiful organization.
Yeah, beauty is the perfect word to use. Basically, iCreate Africa is an organization that is focused on promoting technical and vocational skills, skill trades. We're a hub that promotes skill excellence And what we're trying to do basically is to try and see how we can rebrand skills in such a way that it's more attractive for young people to want to engage. At the end of the day, when you think about it, how many universities do we have? How many schools do we have? Can all the young people go through the schools? And then when you think about the people that can't go to school or can't afford school, what do you think they would do? You know, when they decide to say, okay, we want to be bricklayers and plumbers and tilers, what opportunities are there for them? How much money can they make? And then let's talk about the people that actually went through school, you know, went through university. How many of them have jobs? Every year, Nigerian universities graduate 240,000 people. I think about that every year. And all of them, at least, let's say 60% to 80% join the unemployment line. So our goal is to try and see how we can, you know, make those young people who have gone through school and are not able to find jobs, you know, make them understand that the reason why you don't have jobs is because you don't have the skills that are required in the labor market. People probably they don't need accountants, but they need hairdressers. They don't need lawyers, but they need garment makers. They don't need engineers, but they need carpenters. They need mechanics. Learn a skill that is required. Learn a skill that the labor market needs, and you get a job. So what we're doing is we're promoting these skills. We're rebranding it to make it look more attractive, so that young people can say, you know what, I know that back then these jobs are dirty jobs, but iCreate Africa has made it look so cool and so, you know, so exciting that, you know, we want to be part of it. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, so what would you say is the place of vocational and technical skills in Nigeria's development?
It's the foundation of every thriving economy. Okay. Look at Germany, look at China. China basically, according to what I read recently, 90% of the people that go through technical and vocational school in China get jobs, 90%. Do you understand? You cannot stereotype someone that makes furniture in China. That's what they do. Do you understand? Imagine if being a hairdresser is not, hairdressers are not looked down on in the society. Do you think we'll have a lot of unemployed people? No. So everything that we do, everything that we see, everything around us, everything that revolves around us is based on skills. The cameras, the chair that was sitting on the table, everything are made by people. And if you don't have the people that can actually make these things, it brings down the economy, because at the end of the day, we get to import these things. So all we're trying to say here is, let young people learn this skill so we can produce these things locally. So TVET is the key. You know, it's technical and vocational education is the key to every economy, every thriving economy. And if Nigeria can focus towards that and not invest so much in universities, but invest so much in polytechnic and technical schools, the unemployment rate will reduce. Yeah.
How creative would you say the average Nigerian youth can be?
What? I think Nigerian youth are the most creative in the world. Okay. I'm not even joking. The reason why I said this is, I said the same thing at the World Skills Competition last year in Abu Dhabi. When I got there were 85 member countries that were competing against each other at the technical and vocational skill competition. And I saw I didn't even see any black person, like it was all white people. And I'm like, what's going on? So I got a chance to speak with the president at a press conference. And my question was, how come we don't have black people here? How come we don't have Africa represented? And then they told me about the whole bureaucracy and the whole politics and all that, how Africans would not want to get involved because they have to make some payment and all that, which is government related. But I told them something. I'm like, we don't have like the best institutions. We don't have the best technical schools. We don't have the upgraded power tools. But Africans and young people are still making waves in Nigeria. Look at Maya Tafo. Look at, all these young people. Look at the music industry, for example. I mean, do we have a music school in Nigeria? Like the best music school in Nigeria? We don't have these things. But young people still find a way to thrive regardless. We are naturally born with skills. We are naturals when it comes to skills. Young people, especially Nigerians and Africans, we are just naturals. And all we need is for the government to put a proper structure in place to help us fine-tune these skills and, make us more relevant.
You've mentioned the government a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I know you've helped deliver some projects for the government.
Yes.
So working with them closely, because I mean, when people are saying the government, I see them as human beings. They're people, right?
They are people.
Do you think they are progressive thinking people to take us to where we want to be or where we are supposed to be?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I don't blame them. One thing we need, this is basically psychological for me. One thing we need to understand is human beings are like computers, I would say, but supercomputers. We're all programmed. Whatever we are based on the content that we receive. So we're a bunch of videos and pictures and write-ups. We're just content, basically, right? And every generation has their own face of content, of programming, right? This generation understand what is going on. And the only way you can progress, or any country can progress, is when you have the young people of this generation being part of the conversation. Do you understand? Like, I don't see any progress happening from the government side. I see it happening from the private sector side. It's possible. But from the government side, I don't see it happening because they don't involve the people that understand this time. We are this time. This is us. We understand what's going on. We understand social media. We understand artificial intelligence. We understand blockchain technology. They don't even know what those terms are. Do you understand? Like, you need to get us involved in the conversation. And then you look at the ministerial list. How many youths do you have? I don't think we have up to 2% of youth. Then what about women? Do you understand what I'm saying? So I don't see that happening. Maybe if they start getting young people, young, smart, intelligent people involved in the system, then I can say there's hope for the government. I'm not saying there's no hope for Nigeria because I know a lot of young people doing amazing things regardless, right? But I'm saying it will be more effective if the government can get these young people involved in the system. Yes.
But some people are of the school of thought that the youths should not stay on the sideline. The youths should find a way to take this power, take the government, take over. Do you see that happening? Is there a way that the youths can actually take over the government?
Takeover is kind of a harsh word, I would say. I don't think it's takeover, because takeover people just misinterpret a lot of things. I don't want people going to, protest and all. That's not the way. It's knowledge.
Okay.
It's knowledge. You want to take over as a young person, it's knowledge. It's getting information. Identifying problems, and getting the necessary information that you need and knowledge that you need to solve that problem. When you solve problem, you become valuable, you become needed. Let me tell you something that young people need to understand at this time and age. The world is closer than ever. I mean, closer. We can converse with China and Russia and every other person because of social media, because of the internet. Your market is not your neighbors anymore. It's not just your neighbors anymore. It's not just your community anymore. It's the world. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't need to wait for something to happen. You have to make things happen. Your opportunities is not based on the government policies anymore, though it kind of affects you to a level, but there are things that you can engage in that the government policy cannot actually affect you. Do you understand? So you can't always blame the government. You can actually find a way to get the knowledge that's required to make a difference in the world and add value that to a point where it's impossible for you to be invisible. Do you get what I'm saying? So I don't think you should go out there and, if you're going to say something, if you're going to fight for something, make sure that you have the knowledge and the information that is required to back up whatever it is that you're saying. But don't back up with words, but back up with action. Do you get what I'm saying? So what we're doing as iCreate, this is not supposed to be our work. It's supposed to be the government job. But we can't wait for them because we feel like they don't understand what they're supposed to do. So what do? We do it ourselves. And then now they call us for meetings and ask for our advice and stuff like that. That happens. I've gone to state to advise governors. Do you get what I'm saying? Because I am not complaining. I am doing. I am showing an example, a positive example that is working, and be asked, how can we replicate this? What we're doing right now, we're going to be replicating it in about 15 African countries by the end of next year. Because it's a solution that nobody has ever recognized, nobody has ever seen, nobody has actually ever thought of. But we're doing it. It's happening. It's changing lives, and it's working. So young people can take over. But you take over mentally first. Understand, learn, solve a problem, a physical problem, then project that problem as a solution, and then you can't be ignored. That's the strategy that I think can work. Not just going on Twitter and making noise.
Okay, so tell us more about this solution that you said will be replicated in about 15 countries before the end of 2020.
Yes. So our goal is to create 1 million new jobs by 2030, and fill up 4 million existing jobs by 2030. So in total, 5 million. So in total, our goal is and not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. What we've done is we've created a franchise structure that promotes skills across every level and across all industries. So from the skill competition, for example, that's one major way that we're using, because that's one thing that youth can relate with: competition, events, networking and stuff like that. I don't know if you've seen our competition. It's very, very, engaging and extraordinary. You find people showcasing skills in carpentry, tiling, bricklaying. It's amazing. I mean, I step out of me, like, step out of me being the CEO and just look at what it is, and I'm like, I will be part of this even if I'm not. It's that awesome, right? So we're replicating. We're going to be calling in partners from about, I think, 20, 30 African countries to come and see, what we're doing. And then during that event, we're going to be having a TVET conference where we would invite all the stakeholders, from the government to the private sector to the institutions. We'll all sit down and have a conversation on how we can invest more in technical and vocational skill trade. Also, what we'll be doing is we're going to be inviting all the other countries to come, and then we would show them our system and our model. We would train them on our model and have local partners across this country who would run this competition. And then next year, by December, we'll be hosting the first Africa skill competition, where all the African countries will come and compete against each other. The next stage is we have a skill hub where they can actually work together, like a marketplace where they can work together, collaborate. We're going to make new technology tools available. We're going to create funding. We also have a structure where we actually have a fund where we actually fund, sponsor young people who want to be TVET teachers, because one thing we discovered is, even if we have the best institution, we don't have people that can actually teach, when it comes to this level, when it comes to the world scale standard. So we're willing to actually sponsor young people who are willing to, teach carpentry, tiling, hairdressing abroad to get the skill that's required and come back to become teachers. And then we have our skill magazine, where we project, young people who have done amazing stuff, just put them out there. So for the first time, you have a bricklayer and a tiler on a magazine cover. It's more than just you watching. So
changing the perception around that kind of job.
Yes, that's the key. Okay. And then we have our skill app. These things are going to be replicated across the continent. So the skill app basically it's a mobile app that connects skill service to users. So everybody that wins the competition gets a platform on that app. And then you just get service. You just get people can just call you to fix their chairs, or make a furniture, or roof their houses, or make their hair. It's just a platform where you can find all skilled people, all skill service. So we have all these models that we've designed, and we're going to be releasing some of them at the finals in Lagos, and also trying to see how we can now start replicating this model across Africa.
Yeah,
and I mean, that's the solution.
That's huge, right?
Huge.
But huge. Before I let you go, briefly, what drives you?
The fear of the future. It's scary. It's really, really scary when you think about what was, what is. It's scary to see what would be, what will become, what is next, because our parents are going through what they're going through right now. Nigeria is not so good. We are going through it also. And if we don't find a way to end it, our kids would face the same, and probably even worse. Especially the fact that the war that is coming very close, like I said. So I want to break that wheel, and I want to reinvent it. I want a child who have decided to say, you know what, I want to be a hairdresser from primary school. I want that child to have a privilege to go through the process and not having to go through university because of our mentality that, white collar job or going to the university is the only way for you to succeed. I want to break that wheel. I want to make people understand that every job is a good job as long as you're solving a problem. You are adding value to the system. It's just about solving a problem. That's what job is. A job is not determined. Is not defined by where and how and who. It's defined by the problem that you're solving. An Uber driver solves a problem by bringing me here. The guy that makes this dress solves the problem by giving me this.
I wish we had more time. I know you have a lot to say, but
thank you.
We'll definitely invite you again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's all we can take on this episode. My name is Elsie Godwin. Stay tuned to Plus TV Africa for more interesting conversations. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Plus TV Africa, and do follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Plus TV Africa. Thank you for watching.